Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Mad Capper and this is another video on Raid Shadow Legends and another in our series of I Built Them So You Don't Have To. This time we are going to build Panthera. Panthera is a rare Void Affinity Skinwalker attack-based champion, and the second is the rare variety that I've done on this channel with this series, and I picked them both on purpose. Both Dagger and Panthera, they were the ones of the most promise out of the rares that have been added to the game recently. So we've done Dagger, we found ourselves wanting. This time, let's see if Panthera can hold up to the same scrutiny. So without further ado, let's check out Panthera. Here's Panthera. We talk about her stats: HP 13,545, attack 1277, defense 848, speed 97, crit rate 1550, crit damage, resist 30, accuracy 10. Nothing really stands out there. Accuracy 10, not every champion gets a 10 accuracy off the hop. Crit damage 50, surprising that it's not 57 or higher given that it is an attack-based champion. Speed 97 in that average. Attack 1277, also average, although multipliers are more important than the actual attack number, making the argument, why do they even show an attack number, but what have you. And HP 13,545, pretty thin, but not unexpected for a rare champion. So let's take a look at her toolkit. She has a pretty nice ally accuracy in dungeons by 40. This will be useful, especially in the early game, if you're trying to reach those accuracy levels that you just can't seem to in the dungeons, whether it's landing debuffs or stunning or any of the other kind of abilities that your team might have. Her A3 places a perfect veil buff and a 30% reflect damage buff on this champion for 2 turns. It can be bookable to a 3-turn cooldown. Reflect damage has always been extremely underwhelming, except for in the rarest of cases. And Perfect Veil will actually be okay for her because it will give her some AoE damage mitigation. Her A2 has a 3-turn bookable to 100% chance of landing a heal reduction, and it requires 6 wonderful books. It also attacks one enemy 2 times, and then attacks one enemy 3 times on her A1. Each critical hit has a 50% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 3%, and that's bookable to 75%. That's shitty. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. 3% is ridiculous. Even for a rare, I think it should be 5%. If it's going to be 75, or if you're going to make it 3%, it should be 100% chance. I don't understand it, but we'll move on. We'll talk about it at the end. Let's go to a dungeon. We'll do some tests in the Ice Golem, and then we'll run her in a couple different dungeons. Maybe take her to arena, see what she can do. So let's talk about her build. This is how I decided to build her out. I just wanted to max her crit damage. I actually stole, this is my gear for, almost my gear for Seer. I do swap it a little bit because for the Doom Tower you need a little bit better speed, but pretty much similar looking gear. To give her a ton of crit damage, her attack is too low to really get over the top without start using attack sets, and I just thought, you know what, let's try it. The trade-off is pretty similar in damage. So 28,000 HP, 3962 attack, 176 speed, crit damage of 302, 236 debuff accuracy, and onto her masteries. We've got her using Helm Smasher. Now, admittedly, I probably wouldn't put her in Helm Smasher. She does have a 3-hit and a 2-hit ability, so you could argue for Giant Slayer would be actually a really good one, especially if you're going up against bosses a lot. I would probably go Fatal Execution, or Flawless, sorry. And that way it would give me more opportunity. I could kick back some of that crit damage and try to get attack in by other means, without feeling the need to do what I did. But because I'm up against, we're going to do some tests on the Ice Golem. I really wanted her to have Helm Smasher because all my champions that I used to test, we're going to use Drang, we're going to use Dagger, and we're going to use Ethos. Of course, they all have Helm Smasher, so I just wanted to compare apples to apples and make sure we saw some comparative numbers. So this is the build out. I always like the first hit on each enemy, getting the extra 8%. From here, it's always a whatever you prefer, but this is always nice to have if you put her on a team where you're with a Torment, right? So you're gonna get that extra damage with Luria, those sort of things. And then I waver back and forth, but because she's got Perfect Veil, I thought, you know what, we'll stack onto that damage mitigation with an AoE hit Here, chance to remove random debuff is an amazing ability. A lot of the times I like going down here to get this with the crit damage. 8% of the crit damage decrease versus AoEs. I think they're both really good. You have to go one way or the other. And I always like this because she's kind of squishy, so there's a good chance that she'll counterattack. And her A1 does do it, roughly, sort of does a turn meter decrease. So it's kind of a double win when that happens. Okay, so here we are in one of my favorite testing grounds. We brought in the usual suspects, or some of the usual suspects anyway. We're going to bring in Dagger, as she was the other rare we did on this channel, just to review her current stats. They are 222 speed, 4,229 attack at 228 crit damage, 254 accuracy are her key stats. Then we can look at Jarang, who I always bring into these because people always tell me how I unjustly called him bad when I still don't think he's good. But given that he's in a weak conference, a weak faction, he's actually very usable. I used him on the Doom Tower very recently. 4589 attack at 217 crit damage, 204 accuracy, 197 speed. And then we will look at Ethos is kind of our reference champion. He's sitting at 5600 at 269 crit damage. We're going to use him just primarily for his A1 to kind of show you the upper swing, the upper area of damage, and then we'll compare it to the other two because he is an AoE. This will just give you kind of a blend. Most people, you can watch the channel, see what these champions have done in the past, and it'll give you a fairly good understanding as to what they'll do now. So let's debuff, and we'll use a reference of, we could use any champion as a reference, but there's two of these here. So again, I don't want to use his A2 or A3 because it'll just do too much damage, but we'll show her A2. It is an AoE, but it's essentially hitting everyone for in the mid 30s, 30,000 damage. His A2, which attacks one enemy 2 times, we'll show that one, 39, 41. And then we'll show Panthera here on her A2, 35, 37. So obviously her lowered attack is considerably more important than the crit damage, but they're in that same realm. It's reasonable to state that the two of them are fairly similar in their A2 damage potential. So let's back it out, and then we'll run it again. This time for A1s. So we'll use Ethos, of course, as the reference after we debuff. And these two are going to be fairly similar. I do want the ability for all these attacks to occur. So you'll see here he's doing 87,000. I don't think that's a Helm Smasher proc. Usually he's in the 90s. We'll show you her A1. So 36,000. Jarang's A1, which is a should be very strong, 45. And her A1, which is about 35, should say. I mean, just for giggles, Venus A1 did 9 grand. There's a Fire Knight team put together without a surefire wire to keep the doors open, so to speak. The self-perfect veil, I mean, to me, what's it really accomplishing? Like, I don't... He didn't even take any damage. Oh. Change reflect damage to incoming damage, not actual taken damage. Boom. Worthwhile ability. I'm really curious to see where she's gonna make her break. Her runs here is on the actual boss. If she can turn meter reduce. This is not a team built to reduce turn meter. Oh, what the sweet Jesus was that? Nice. I mean, see how she's barely knocking down the turn meter at all. Like it's really inconsequential in my opinion. And then she's just wasting it because while we need her to be hitting, she's not. Now this team, as far as getting it open, right? You know, we have lots of multi-hitters here, so arguably very easy. She won because it's not even 100% chance. Thank God for Cold Heart. So we did do it. Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, when you look at the output, I mean, Cold Heart, yeah, Cold Heart's being Cold Heart, but Dagger's output 823, Alika 1.3 million, and then Panthera just 293, and Blindseer basically had to pick Dagger up half the time because she was the one dying originally, and Alika even died once. So, yeah, I don't know if this is going to be a worthwhile investment on the Fire Knight. And honestly, I mean, we'll take her into the arena, but I suspect, I don't think she's going to be the gem in the rough that we were hoping for. All right, so as part of an active low-key testing out my latest, newest setup with the green screen behind me, a whole bunch of lighting, and a new camera, a much better looking camera. Well, probably more exposing my less. Maybe I should use the old. Anyway, either way, let's go through Panthera in the arena, and we'll see what she can do. Not a huge fan of her, not gonna lie, but we're gonna bring her in anyway. We're up against something. We're up against something. So let's try to make myself as fast as possible, and we want to. Well, we'll bring in a debuff. And then we'll bring in Panthera, and then we'll bring up a cleanup just to be safe. There's got to be someone slower than 170. Oh, I got something. I got it. I got it. This is just to kind of give you a real world example of what she's going to do in the arena. I'm not a fan. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I'm not a fan of her. I don't think she's very useful. But we're going to give her a try here, and we're going to see if there's something we can do against a team like this. So, you know, you want the heal debuff isn't the big deal. You want to be able to do as much damage here as possible. So, I mean, if we were to hit auto, and we're just to see what she does, and of course she's going to put herself. She's going to use her A3 here, and you can see immediately where I'm failing to see the use in that. Again, I'm still failing to see a use. Great A1, actually, not a bad hit. 40k, not crazy damage, but for a rare champion, her A1 does pretty good damage. Her A2 does pretty good damage, but she really was just a passenger in that whole event behind Candrafon because she's using her A3 first, which is a bit of a dead skill in my opinion. And I mean, we'll show it again here. Probably coming close to where I might not be the fastest without using a speed lead. But yeah, like, what does this do? What does this do for me? I guess she'll be kind of useless or useful here because she'll be able to hit. There's her A2 hit for 30k. But you know, I think the biggest problem with me is what she's doing here. I can put anyone in there, and anyone will be able to do that damage and probably a lot better. So why am I bringing her in? She's not adding value here. We've got the turn, and then she's disappearing. And we know that reflect damage is underwhelming. We know that you see, like, what happened there? We know that Veil is good for damage mitigation, but you want her to take damage for the reflect. That doesn't work anyway. And you see, this is the sample where she might be of some use, right? Single turn meter booster. So long as you're confident you're going to be faster, and then you're kind of betting on your, in my case, my Force Affinity, but if you were using like a Trunda, you're up against a Magic Affinity, or sorry, up against a Force Affinity champion. In this case, it's up against a Spirit Affinity champion, and you know that she's playing cleanup, which is great, but there's way better champions to achieve the same effect as her. Even as rares, your starter champion would be probably better off in this position, and is the AI just makes it worse, right? Okay, now what? Right, so this is perfect. You got here, she's gonna come in, she's gonna do 2 hits, and that's useful. That's what we want out of her. Once she kills him in 1 hit, even better. But it just seems to me like I could put Errol in that position. I could put a starter champion. If you're talking rares, I could put a starter champion in there. I could put Armiger in there to hit similarly. I'm just struggling on finding out what makes her unique. What makes her in this position useful in this position, instead of going with double turn meter boost, or going with a harder hitting A1, or going with another nuker, or going with a buff strip, or a cleanse, or whatever. There's so many different things you would put in this position. I just don't feel like this is the one. This is the position that I feel good about using. Like anyway, there she is. I mean, for what she's worth, for what it's worth, she can do work. I just don't feel like she's going to do the kind of work that you're looking for out of her. When I've seen well, actually, you know what? Honestly, all 4 starter champions I think would be better off in that position, spending the resources to be your 4th until you pull Ray, until you pull Ethos, until you pull Trunda, whoever Foley, whoever your big nuker is. In this particular scenario, with a single turn meter boost, if you're going double turn meter boost, then she loses her spot completely, which is, I mean, that's the choices you make. But yeah, I just, in the early game, as a rare champion, fine. Using her in the arena, short term, but she has to be useful somewhere else. And, you know, we showed her in the Fire Knight, and I didn't really like it. So, I don't know, we'll move on. We've hit enough. We've done 3 battles, 6 minutes. She hits well, but I just don't find that she's adding any value, especially on auto, where she's putting Veil on first, which really negates the whole point of her having Reflect, which in of itself isn't even that great of an ability. My final thoughts on Panthera are nothing short of disappointing. Putting a new rare champion in the game is not a bad idea. I know a lot of people get a little bit angry or antsy when they put new rare champions or new champions of any kind in the game, because I feel it's diluting the pool. However, rare champions aren't necessarily a pool that you have to be worried about. You get a rare champion out of every ancient you pull and out of every void shard you pull, unless you're pulling higher quality. So there is no reason why you can't add them into the game. And if you make them useful, if you bring them in to add something new to the game, then they're that much more. Think Grave Chill Killer. Think Frozen Banshee. Those are just 2 of the epics rares that they've added to the game that have actually increased the meta. And in this last turn, they put in Dagger, who I've already shown on the channel is an absolute early game, mid game game breaker for anyone who happens to pull her. I like her more than War Maiden because her damages is better. And I mean, maybe she's not better. Maybe you can argue War Maiden, but still, to bring a secondary champion that has the abilities to be useful in this game nowadays as a rare champion is a sight to behold. And so when I brought up Panthera, and I decided to build her, I was looking at her kit and I was suspect, but I thought, you know what? We got to give it a go. And, well, frankly, I was right. She's not very good. It's not a very strong argument to build her. There are better champions to do anything she wants to do in this game. There are better options at rare. There's better options at uncommon half the time. Well, not half the time, but several notable options that are better than her. So if you have uncommon and a plethora of rares that are better than this champion, what's the use? So, I mean, when we look at her skill set, she has a great aura. 40% accuracy aura in dungeons is really good for an early game account that might be struggling, getting through dragon, being able to put poisons on the dragon, which has always been a very strong way to kill the dragon in the earlier levels. But then you go to this. Reflect damage is broken. It's garbage. It doesn't work very well. There's too many broken aspects to it. I don't know how else to put it. It's just broken. And then Perfect Veil on yourself when you have reflect damage. The mindset is broken. You want to be hit if you have reflect damage, so you can reflect the damage. That's the whole point. What's the point of having reflect damage if you've got a veil on yourself? It makes no sense. And then heal reduction, while this does hit hard, I will give it that. And heal reduction is useful in areas of the game, and it never hurts to have a champion that's rare that you can use in things like Spirit Potion Dungeon in the early game. In the Fire Knight, for example, where you need that heal reduction if you're not stopping him from closing it, it's still a very widely available debuff that I don't think we need a new champion for. We have, we have Coldheart who has it and is a Fire Knight specialist, so we've already got that ability in there. She's also very good in the Spirit Keep, so you don't need this. Isn't needed. Heal reduction isn't needed on this champion, and I can't figure out where you would prioritize using her for her heal reduction over anyone else, frankly. And then her A1, this absolutely mind-boggling 3% turn meter, so a 9 if she lands all 3. But she won't necessarily land all 3 because it's only a 75% chance. Those chances are she'll only land 2 of them. That's a whopping 6% turn meter decrease. Well, holy, is that not a game changer at all, and kind of a useless ability that looks pretty on paper, but the reality is doesn't do much for you. This champion is not good. Do not build her. Use her for food. If you want to keep one because you keep all void rares, throw it in the vault. But do not build this champion out. Not worth it. That's what I think of her kit before we talk about books. And I'm going to gripe about books because this is absolutely driving me bonkers. You've got 17 books on a rare champion. 17 books. Books are not easy to come by. Even rare books are not easy to come by. They're there, but they're not easy. And a lot of players are complaining about this in general. And then you put that on a rare champion and expect some new player to come along. I happen to have lived during the golden age of knowledge, I guess I would call it, where rare books were dropping left, right, and center. That doesn't happen anymore. And to bring out a champion, knowing that you've taken rare books out of the game effectively past a certain point in people's progression, I'm flabbergasted. I don't even know how to react because it's absolutely ridiculous. It's a poor decision, and 17 books should be ashamed of doing. There. I'm done ranting. I apologize. Come on. This champion doesn't need to be in the game. You didn't need another rare champion if you're not going to put that somewhere to be used. Maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, if you think this champion is better than I think this champion is, let me know in the comments down below. Also, please feel free to like, subscribe, follow, notify. Check out my Twitch, where I Twitch stream every weekend, plus a couple days during the week, except for this past week where I've been setting up the new room. Like I said, I got lights. We're in a brand new. Look at that. The green screen's working A-okay, so we're hype about that. That's all I have for you today. I thank you for joining me in this video, and please, most importantly, be safe, be kind, and we'll see you in the next video.